Chi creation, enlightenment. To practice Kung Fu is to become more of who we already are. It's to explore and exercise the mind, body, and spirit. To become more authentic, to become more self-empowered. It's like to like seek that spiritual enlightenment, like through books and all these different religions and stuff, which, and spiritual paths. There's many different pathways to find enlightenment, but this way, you get to do it in that physical way. It's kind of like you're mixing that mind, body, and spirit. You're including spirit into the practice. And so, Kung Fu teaches you to be the spirit of nature. So, for this episode, it's more concentrating on like inside the realms, like because these are like the heavenly realms, or they're supposed to be, in one sense. This is what I can find my heaven with this. I can train on my own and all these kind of things, and it's like that energy that comes with it, and it's gonna like because like dancing, you know what I mean, in that kind of sense. It depends what your thing is in a way and stuff in it, but you're finding that access to spirit with it and stuff. So in that sense, it's kind of like in the center of a chakra, we've got the real world, and that's like one of the aspects of things which kind of like part of this series, I suppose, or this episode either. It's like there's so many things in life which we have to include in this kind of concept of like the origins of life and stuff. Like gossip, conspiracy, all these kind of things which have existed throughout humanity for as long as history has recorded it and such. So one thing for it in terms of like creating balance and finding your place in the world, finding yourself in the world, and finding spirit. Kung Fu is like one of the best, or if not the best, way to do it. It's like your body's part of that fuse, so to like integrate yourself into the experience of life. I mean, because it's a gift, isn't it? That it's quite it's an extraordinary thing in a sense. And so, in that kind of sense, it's like rather than all the bad things, this is like, one of the best things. And it's sacred, it's like it's been passed on like throughout all these masters, all these years, even like since Buddha's teachings. His hands touched those monks' hands, what I mean, passed the knowledge on with the hands, and then like the next student, it passes on that way, So like all the following Shaolin monks and all these kind of things, and now that knowledge, it's transcended through time, and it's kind of like there's that connection to the past in that way right there, and that's kind of like one of the purposes of Shaolin is to retain the knowledge of the past. And I kind of think that a big part of it is just the spirit of what Kung Fu is. It's kind of like that expresses that the person, the energy of the person, rather than a photograph. You know what I mean? Because like a black and white photograph, you can judge the image wrong. You know what I mean? You don't know what that kind of person's really like and stuff like. And also, like in past when cameras were new, people felt uncomfortable. You know what I mean? So they might look stiff and all this kind of stuff like. So it's kind of like a contradiction to the truth and stuff. But passing the knowledge through this way is it's another thing. And so even like in the movements, you can see that sacredness. So I'll let it play. there's a spiritual saying that you're never alone, and there's another aspect of you're never without Wing Chun. Oh, Kung Fu, sorry. I suppose Wing Chun in my terms. But it's like you can go through some difficult times and such. It's like when I were ill, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, oh, I had Kung Fu. And it's kind of like, you know, and that kind of got me through it. I probably wouldn't have survived without it, you know? And so like, all those hours and, you know, training and practicing and all these kind of things and stuff. Uh, you know, redeveloping that health and redeveloping like the connections to your body and your neural networks and all these kind of things. Um, it's like, you know, that growth and stuff. Similar to like, you know, a tree of life in that kind of sense, all the networks and all that kind of stuff. Which, you know, like Kung Fu would redevelop that in a physical and spiritually. You know, there's so many aspects of it, which is kind of like guiding towards spirit. You know, it's like, you know, the constant growth of it. Like, you know, you're talking to yourself of like, you know, your progress or whatever, and you kind of like you are speaking to spirit about it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, you know, those conversations are shared in that way. Um, and you know, spirit sees that you want that progress, you want to grow, all that kind of thing. So this this is the Kung Fu greeting. So you got one hand closed to represent the sun, and then one hand open to represent the crescent moon. Well, just the moon in general, I think. I don't think it's specifically crescent, but it's just like, you know, adds to it in many ways and such. So yeah, you know, the love for Kung Fu. That's one thing that I've got for it. You know, that's why it belongs at the center of a chakra, at the center of a series. Um, and it wouldn't exist without that expression of love. You know, the teachers end up, you know, loving the students because we're like they're known lifelong, and it becomes a family. You know, which is like, you know, or has been for, you know, in China for quite a long time and stuff like that kind of thing. In Western world, it might be different because people go to classes and it's, you know, it's kind of a little bit different than, I don't know, maybe. um, but no, it's still there. You know, it kind of that information transfers as well and such. Um, and my teacher told me that you know, it's like a family, but we'll fall out a lot. So a bit chaotic in that one and stuff like. Um, but you know, it's all part of it. You know, arguments can bring people so close together and such. I've got a series of pictures. It's got like the yin yang, the torus field shape, so you can see the movements. It's just stationary, but in that kind of sense and such. So there's a few of them in that way. See, when you see them moving, you can see it as well. It's just that when they're moving, sometimes you can miss it, you know. But at the same time, that kind of like gives a nice little guide in a sense. There's over 15,000 styles of different styles of kung fu. One of them, heart-shaped boxing. It says it wrong way around. I thought that's good for heart earth and stuff. This is my teacher's teacher, Martin Briley, my grandmaster from Leeds, with the butterfly knives in his class. It's with Ip Chun, the son of Ip Man, all that kind of stuff, with the wooden dummy in background. It's Martin in the middle as well. So you got Ip Chun and Samuel Kwok, who was in Lancaster. So these are quite old photos. Ip Jing and Ip Chun. So we pole against the knives. So these are the two weapons in Wing Chun. Wing Chun's a bit more direct than a lot of the Kung Fu's. Like most of them are kind of colourful, or whichever, especially like the northern ones. You know, like those wushu videos we just watched. They're more like long fists and all those kind of things and stuff like. So they're kind of like that long range, and it looks more colourful and stuff like that. But this one more about effectiveness and such. So we've got a long range weapon and the short range weapon of the knives. The knives. Next to Ip Chun. So the clothing, just wanted to point out that we had it before Matrix. Yip Man and Ung Moi. Ung Moi were the Shaolin nun who created a Wing Chun. It's a designer style. Although I think this is an actress in a movie, because it's like 400 years ago. It's the times of Ung Moi and all that kind of stuff. So